So welcome to the Buttery Mails podcast, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Jacob Boyer. Joined with me, as always, my guests, Jacob Demansky and Rob Morrissey. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, Jacob. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm thankful that I was allowed to host this week and have you guys on as the guests. It was a nice change of pace.
I'm doing well. Just saying.
I always, am happy when I'm invited back on one of my favorite podcasts.
Same. Yeah.
Strong streak running right now. Yeah.
What is it? 85 now? You've been invited
Yeah.
back?
We might hold jointly the record for most guest spots on a single podcast.
Most guests invited back consecutively.
Yeah, it's almost like we're doing something right.
Yeah, I feel wanted, and I need that feeling so bad.
I feel like people are chasing me through the streets.
Like someone's about to break down my door and
get me. Exactly.
Was that a reference to the movie we're talking about today?
No, that was just how I feel in my life, actually.
Well, I mean, you said it, Jacob. We've gathered here today to talk about the movie Men. It's an A24 production. Came out, when did that come out? It came out
like 2
May
weeks
20th,
ago.
2022.
Yeah.
A24 production, directed by Alex Garland. And
same guy who did Ex Machina and Annihilation, and he's written a bunch of other movies before that.
Yeah. Overall, I did want to start out just by saying, when it comes to, the production company A24, I think we all were in this boat. I can't speak for all of us, but I think I might try that. When they started first coming about, I think a lot of people, including myself, were like, A24 is so cool. Like, oh, did you see that A24 movie, And then now it's kind of like, it's like when you had a favorite band for a long time and, it just kind of felt like it was yours. And then everybody eventually over the years started getting into that band and it doesn't feel like it's yours anymore. That's kind of like what happens in my mind with A24 production. How do you guys feel about that? Is that ring true to you?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that.
So.
I agree with that, and I think that Men is not the hit single, but it's the one song on their newest album that reminds you of their old hits.
Like that.
Yeah.
I do like that, actually. Yeah. That's a good
the whole time I was watching this movie, there was like an overwhelming feeling the whole time of like, oh, this is an A24 movie. Like there have been a couple of I'm I think Green Room back in like 2015 or 16 is one of the, I believe that's an A24 movie.
I don't think it is. Let me
Jacob, you can double check. I'm trying to think what maybe it doesn't matter, but I remember like first kind of being aware of like A24 back in like that 2015, 2016 block, and as of late, there have been some like A24 movies where I'm like, it is?
It is? Okay.
Yeah, I thought so. I love Green Room, especially because I like what is it, Macon Blair? I don't remember his name.
Macon Blair. Yeah.
Is that the? Oh, yeah.
He's great.
He's a minor role in that.
He's one of my favorite actors of all time. I think I think that if he like becomes big enough, he will be touted as one of the greatest actors of all time. Also very good at directing and writing. Check out Blue Ruin. But I remember
fantastic.
Blue Ruin is one of my favorite movies.
He didn't direct Blue Ruin, did he?
I think he wrote it.
He wrote it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if
it was his like
it.
Jeremy Saulnier. Jeremy Saulnier was Blue Ruin and Green Room.
But he wrote it and starred in it, and I definitely, it's been a long time where maybe the last time was Midsommar, which I love Midsommar. That's another good one. I think Midsommar was like the last time where I was like, oh yeah, this is an A24 movie. Like this is fully an it couldn't be any other production company right now.
Same with like The Lighthouse and
yes.
I want to say the first movie, funny enough, I think that where I started to recognize the name A24 was Ex Machina, which is the same guy who did Men. That was the first time where it stood out to me.
Catalog. It's crazy how deep their catalog is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I want to say about them is like the fact that they have become quote unquote everyone's favorite band. Like, you know, it's a reason for that, because even watching this movie Men, it has a lot to do with, of course, like the cinematography. It's always looking beautiful, like every time. Like there was a bunch of beautiful shots in this movie, and like just something right off the bat to say about this movie was the thing I noticed about. Yeah, I saw this movie twice, and the first time I watched it, I was kind of confused after I saw it. I didn't know how I felt about it. But the thing I took away immediately was that it was captivating in a well-paced sense, where I was always just so into what was happening. Like, and I mean, kind of being in a theater setting forces you to like be in that tunnel lens anyway, but I was just very into everything that was happening, and from the trailer it like seemed really weird and abstract, so I like, what is going to happen? What is the meaning of all of this shit that's happening right now? So
I think A24 movies in particular oftentimes suffer from the trailer being better than the movie, and this is not one of those cases. I liked this one a lot.
Wish I didn't see the trailer, to be honest, before I saw this movie, though.
I gotta say the trailer for this film, and I don't want to necessarily get into our ratings this early, like where we rank it, but judging off of judging on I gotta take. But listen, I think that the trailer that I saw, and I actually kind of showed the trailer to a couple of people because A24 has had some like bigger marketed releases than this, and I think this movie suffers from the fact that everything everywhere all at once is out right now, and I think that's the current like this is the A24 movie.
Rightfully so.
I have not seen it. I've heard it's amazing, but
it's very, very good.
I know that like not many people have been up on Men, and I when I've showed them the trailer, it looks like just like a horror movie. Like it doesn't look like there is much more going on than like, oh, this is a blatant like scare you horror movie. And I gotta say, watching it, like there were some parts that kind of freaked me out, but I really was expecting more of like a kind of jump scary horror movie with some like psychological stuff going on. And I thought this movie was just way more like psychological and kind of drama stuff going on. Yeah. You know, I thought it was gonna be kind of like Hereditary in a certain way, and it didn't really go down that path at all until maybe the very end. But even that wasn't like scary. It was more like, oh, this is fucking me up right now. Yeah. Like this is crazy shit. After a pretty mild-mannered, like weird, creepy movie, this is like you're just amping it up so quickly with like almost no warning. And like Hereditary, I was like, oh, this is scary.
Hereditary is I think it's the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Hereditary,
it's for sure up there.
Well, I do just want to put this out here. We are probably we're gonna run through the entire movie.
We're gonna spoil the shit.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
If you want to see this movie and you don't want to be spoiled, maybe pause here and come back after the movie if you're listening.
Yeah.
It's fully worth seeing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, not to send listeners away, but I will say that like, you know, I'll get into my opinions about it, but I'm not disappointed I saw this movie. You know, I just saw Top Gun 2 last night, and Top Gun 2 was so fucking killer. And then I came home and watched this movie today, and it was like, oh yeah, different vibes, but still, like I'm really happy I saw both of these movies in the same weekend.
Yeah, and like, here's another thing to preface, like, you know, us doing this movie is I was kind of like really pushing Rob to watch this movie. It's not because I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I like don't hold that opinion, like, or maybe I do. I don't know. We'll get there. But I just really wanted us to talk about this movie that I just thought was like intriguing because there's not that much good shit out. I mean, Top Gun, second Top Gun, like
so
that's worth seeing. Like, but I'm just like, what else is out? The fucking Black Phone or whatever the fucking that shit is.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's like, what's that movie where like it's fucking the Black Balloon guy.
Phone. I don't.
What?
I have no clue what you're talking
guy?
about right now.
What are you talking about?
It's Ethan Hawke. He's like it's a horror movie. It looks like shit.
The balloon guy? What is it called?
I'll look it up.
Is it a horror movie about Treb Heinig and the Chicago Balloon
yeah.
Exactly right.
God.
It's called the Black Phone. I was right. It's called the Black Phone.
I've never heard of that. Was that a trailer that you got
it was like
before
shoved down
Men?
people's throats. It was, but it's also a trailer that's been in theaters for a while now. And you being a movie buff, this is kind of shameful behavior on your part.
I got the most.
It looks like shit, but
I got the most eclectic set of trailers ever for Men. Jake, you'd mentioned that you had a weird theater experience seeing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was it was me, two girls, a guy and a girl who were on a date.
Nice.
No, like it was maybe like 7 or 8 people in the theater total. Me, like
it was me and these two broads.
Yeah, no, it was like there was like 7 or 8 people in the theater
going to see Men.
It was me. There was like an older, like maybe like 40, 50 something couple in the back. There were these 2 girls,
nice.
And there was a guy and a girl who were like on a date.
This just sounds like an A24 movie.
Yeah,
this is the normal theater experience for.
But it was
I watched a 50-year-old man cry to Top Gun 2 last night. Okay, like we were sitting next to these people who I guess might have been like Navy or Air Force veterans who were like all like. They were like emotionally invested. The person I saw it with, I think, might have cried at a certain point. Like, yeah.
Said he cried 2 times.
He told he was. Oh, okay, yeah. So he yeah. I'm not gonna touch that, but listen, I there are very specific ways people experience movies, and that sounds like A24 for sure. Where it's like, oh yeah. It was me and like 5 other people in a small theater in the back of the fucking
That's
place.
That's basically what it was. But like we had the like strangest set of trailers. We had like Thor, the 4th Thor movie is called.
Got that today. Yeah.
Marcel the Shell with Shoes on the movie.
Yes, saw that today.
Top
we
Gun.
Saw all the same trailers.
It was Top Gun 2, and then like 1 or 2 other horror movies that I don't remember what they were, but like throwing like Marvel
Watcher was one called
Watcher. Yeah, Watcher actually looked pretty good. I wanted to.
Which one is Watcher?
It's like Micah Monroe, and she moves to like Romania or something with her boyfriend, and they're in this tall apartment building, and there's an identical one next to them, and there's like a dude who's like watches her through the window and then starts stalking her in real life.
Okay, yeah, I got all fun trailers for Top Gun 2. All the Top Gun 2 trailers were like, yeah, the movies are back.
Yeah.
I did get a weird. I don't know if it's.
Don't you love spending $30 on concessions?
That
like,
was.
come on.
I don't remember if it was like specific to AMC, but I did also get this thing with like Nicole Kidman like pulling up to a movie theater by herself and being like, movies are. Oh, it is an AMC thing. Okay, I wasn't sure.
The movies
if that
are
was,
back, baby.
That's basically what it was.
Up in a trench coat with a hood and takes it down. And
takes it down, and it's Nicole Kidman, and she walks in with a soda and a popcorn, and she's the only one in the theater probably seeing an A24
does not
movie.
Eat.
Yeah.
A place she does
not go.
Yeah, exactly. Like
how funny! I want to see a cut of that where she walks into the theater with her movie, like her popcorn and her soda, sits down, and Top Gun 2 starts up, and she just tosses both out over the shoulder and walks out because Tom Cruise. Yeah. I want to see an edit of that so bad. But I won't like. I think we all know what scene I'm talking about. I won't say it yet because I think we're gonna build up to it. But
Yeah.
the scene towards the end with
Scene.
with all of the men. The two
I have a story about that. Like, that was my theater experience story.
This was part of my theater experience. Was the
okay.
I was sitting in the I was sitting like in the sort of ideal like towards the back and in the middle, like seating like the ideal like spot you want to be kind of. And the two girls were one row up from me, but like all the way to the left. And when that scene started to happen, like when the second or third man appeared, let's say, one of them, I heard not like a yell, but like an audible "fuck this," and the two women stood up and walked out of the theater.
Oh my god!
I think we should just dive into the start of this movie.
Yeah.
How this movie starts off, and this is kind of why I wish I didn't see the trailer. Is you wouldn't know this in the moment if you didn't see the trailer, but it's oh my gosh, Jessie Buckley watching someone. Don't know, you wouldn't know who it was if you didn't see the trailer, but it's her husband, you know, past her, falling out of a window or off of a balcony.
Yeah.
Right past her, and it's in slow motion. You see them look at each other, and then it kind of starts playing this really beautiful song. I did look it up. I actually really like the song a lot. It's called "Love Song" by Leslie Duncan, and it's the beginning score
Really
of the
good.
movie. And and it just kind of that happens. Cuts to our protagonist driving, you know, through the countryside.
What's her name's Harper, right? Or was that her like last?
Yeah.
But first name, or was that like her last name? Because that was a thing at some point where she's like, oh yeah, no, I changed my name because I separated my husband or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like her last name's like an M name, and even on IMDb it just says she's Harper.
She's okay, so I guess that's a first name then.
I think the only time you hear her first name is in a flashback where she's like fighting with her husband, and he says it.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Rory. Wait, what's his name? Rory. Jeez, he plays like all the men. Rory Kinnear.
Yeah.
Plays Jeffrey, who's
which
like
that was I felt like, because Rob, you mentioned that in the Discord earlier. Like you were like, how does she not notice this? But like, I didn't notice until the second or third time I saw the trailer. I was like, wait a minute.
So here's the thing. So the main guy plays like 5 or 6 different men within the movie, and the first time I noticed it is in a scene where he's like 2 characters in the scene. He's like a guy who's getting arrested and the cop.
Yeah.
And I like, that was when it really like dawned on me, because the caretaker of this woman is like going to a mansion, or like not a mansion, but like a
really fucking nice house to just
like a manor, like a
house. Yeah.
It's a manor in a small UK village in the countryside, and the caretaker is played by what's his name? Rory Kinnear.
Yeah.
And so, very funny character, very quirky.
Joffrey.
I love Jeff.
Joffrey as this caretaker character.
Yeah.
So funny. One of the best parts of the movie, honestly.
And also, it hit him, like, all of the posters I've seen, it's just his fucking face, like, in mid-smile. And that, like, hilarious. Like, his character is so fucking funny, but, like, that poster is so fucking unsettling to look at. Like, just his fucking, like, teeth and that, like, crooked smile. It's, I love it.
So the main character is in this manor trying to do, like, a kind of like an Oprah healing process of, like, you know, I need time for myself. My husband just fell off a balcony. You know, and that's the other thing that is interesting, where it's, like, it's kind of unclear. They kind of, one of the characters at one point in the movie, I think it might be Harper, says, like, he died trying, like, she kicks him out of the house later on in the movie in a flashback, and it's implied that he might have been trying to go from, like, the upstairs balcony to their balcony to get back in the house. but it's still like unclear whether that's what happened and he just fell, or if he really was like committing suicide.
Because he did threaten it early on, like
exactly
in his first scene, he was like, "If you divorce me, I'll kill myself," and she's like, how can you say that to me?
Super healthy, by the way. Like, really, one of the healthiest things you can say when your partner tells you they want to leave you is that if you leave me, I'll fucking kill myself, and you'll have to live with the guilt. It's like, good for you. Like, that's why she wants to stay with you, is because this is the kind of person you are.
She pretty much says that to him too, like in that same scene. She's like, "How can you put that on me?" And like this is why we need to get divorced, and that goes about as well as you can expect.
It is pretty much, this movie is about, like Rob had stated, it's this woman. He's just trying to have a place to heal after this traumatic experience, and you're not quite sure exactly how it plays out, like because she says things, but I feel like it's kind of implied we know what happens, and there's a few telling things that happen throughout the movie that kind of suggest that is what it is. Like Jacob had said that, there's a scene where they're arguing, where she tells her husband, "I'm going to divorce you," says, "I'm going to kill myself, and you're going to have to live with that." But there are some things that are very telling about Jessie Buckley's character, and I feel like there's a scene in this movie, when she's in the town, and she goes to a church, and while she's in the church, she's just thinking about this argument that she's had with her husband. She's playing it back over in her head, and you see that she gets struck by her husband, and that's kind of the point where she says, "Get out."
Yeah.
And she has this talk with the priest, and that's when she mentions, I don't know whether he climbed out and was he forced his way into the upstairs neighbor's apartment, and I don't know if he was trying to get into our apartment by going down from the balcony, or he let himself go. But I feel like she knows exactly what happened. That I think, at least in my view, he went up there to kill himself, and I think she tries to hide some of that, because she tries to hide aspects about herself throughout the movie from, in particular, men. Jeffrey, the landlord, the guy who owns the property, while he's giving her a house tour, there's a room with a piano, and he asks her, "Do you play the piano?" And she says, "No, I don't." And then when she's later, you see her playing the piano very well,
beautifully, yeah.
And she has a friend who she's on the phone with, and basically most of the time that she's there and she's talking to her, and just kind of is asked the same question by her friend. "Oh, can you play that piano?" And she goes, yeah, I can play pretty good. And
funny enough, her main foil character, despite all these other characters in the film, her main foil character is her friend on FaceTime.
Yeah. And I just think that, man, if this movie had a funny title to it, it would be gaslighting the movie. It is just you see constantly reason why she left was because it's her relationship with her husband was so toxic. It's she wants to leave, and it's this whole thing where anytime she says anything to her husband, he's "No, I'm the one, I'm pleading, you can't plead, I'm angry, you can't be angry." It's this whole thing, and and each time those scenes happen, she's "This is my life," or "This is my phone." She just can't be an individual.
That was a really interesting line.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Is he's "How can you do this to me?" And she's "Well, it's my life too." It's
Well, I think very specifically she explains to him they both have lives. That's the thing that really stuck with me, where it's not to get into my own shit, going through a little bit of a romance thing with myself right now. It's very complicated, and there is a part of that where it's oh yeah, it's not just that the breakup isn't one-sided. Like, that's, I think, a thing that happens to people sometimes, maybe in real life, maybe in movies and stories, where it's like one person decides to break up and then they're the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you both have individual lives. You both have wants and desires that are equally valuable and valid. And, for the one side to be like, no. I know, like, you're trying to leave me, but it's all about me. Like, this is you're in my life is definitely where that character of her husband is coming from, where it's like, and that's another interesting thing about this movie, where you don't ever see like what the factors are that precipitate the divorce. You just know that she wants to divorce him. He could have done anything. He could have been physically abusive, emotionally abusive. He could have been a cheater. Like, there any number of reasons, or quite frankly, he could have done nothing wrong at all, and she just like fell out of love with him for some reason. And you never get an explanation for why she's divorcing him. All you see is the after effects, where he is manic and angry and not willing to listen to her, and she is like, well, these are my feelings, like she has to navigate his minefield, which, again, coming from like I watched this movie and it fucked me so much because of what I'm going through in my life right now. And, I think this movie like helped me in a certain aspect be like, oh yeah, like I have to look at things from both sides, and the movie really doesn't do a lot to be like, well, here's a reason you could empathize with her other than the way he reacts to finding out she's leaving him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How I described it, Jake, because I originally I was gonna see this with my girlfriend, not this past weekend that we're recording this, but the one before.
I bet this movie broke people up. Yeah. Like, just for the record, like,
and,
I think
could see
couples probably saw this movie and did not make it out of the theater
it's
together.
Time, yeah, no. But we ended up seeing Doctor Strange 2 instead, and then my girlfriend was on a camping trip with some family members that while I was seeing the movie this weekend, and she was like, "Oh, how was Men?" And I was like, "Oh, you mean Toxic Masculinity, the movie? Yeah, it was great." Yeah, no.
Well,
yeah.
I explained to Jazz because she like asked me what I was watching, and the way I explained it to her, because like, Jazz hates it when I like take like 10 minutes to be like, here's the whole movie, Yeah. And I just kind of was like, listen, you remember that Family Guy sketch where they talk about how like all Lifetime movies are the same, and the Family Guy quote is like, Natalie Bertinelli in Lifetime's original, men are awful and will always hurt you. And it's like, that's what this movie is in a lot of ways, is just like, men are evil, men's desires will always supersede yours, and they will hurt you if you don't like kowtow to what they want.
That is this movie.
Kind of painful in the moment, but I had a similar thing back when my ex and I were breaking up, where I was reading a book and I was like, I really like, okay, yeah, no, this is like kind of what you said with like that argument scene, Rob, or like there was a lot of stuff in that book where I was like, okay, yeah, no, this feels almost like a 1-to-1, and it's kind of unsettling. The main guy's name was Jake, for fuck's sake. Like,
that's very funny.
And my girlfriend was like, "What are you reading?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a book. It's like I'm thinking of ending things, is what it's
a
called."
Book about our lives.
Yeah,
right
no.
now.
I said I literally like I on the fucking page, like, it was like we were in a weird space where we had just had an argument, and she was like trying to like break out of the, oh, we're not talking to each other thing, and I was still kind of mad, and she's like, "What are you reading?" And I'm like, I'm thinking of ending things. So there's a girl who's debating on whether she's gonna tear this guy's heart out or not. I think that started.
You're like,
fight.
Listen, I think my future self might have traveled back in time and wrote a novel
to write this book, then
to
give it to
warn
me.
myself. And
also, funny enough, starring Jessie Buckley, another movie we've talked about on the podcast.
I love Jessie Buckley. I love her.
Yeah, she's fucking great.
I do just want to like kind of move this along in a way where we talked that, you know, she's in this place because you know, she went through something traumatic, and she's, you know, she's now at the house.
Yeah.
And what happens in the movie is that she is just kind of she goes on a walk to a park near her, and you get this really great scene, or multiple scenes of her just kind of feeling relieved. There's a moment of relief for her. You see her as an individual just kind of living her life. She gets caught in the rain and is very much enjoying it because it's like a sense of freedom there, that, oh, I'm having my own escapades right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Life is beautiful. And
then the men show up.
Yeah,
basically.
Those dastardly men.
So she goes to she finds this old railway tunnel where she starts doing these singing echoes into it, and it's like a little creepy, but it's also just really cool. You see her just having a good time.
I thought it was one of the better scenes in any movie I've watched recently, where she is just, for a couple sustained minutes, like, just sending out these, like, beautiful frequencies into this tunnel and creating music. And, like, to the point you were making, Jake, like, she gets to kind of do her own thing. Like, she's in control, even just down to, like, enjoying the serendipity of life and the weird random things that you can come across. This, like, perfect tunnel where the echo, like, she'll sing like a couple bars of, you know, just high notes, and it'll echo it echoes for minutes, you know. And it's just like, you think about being in that situation in real life, and you're like, it's like childhood wonder, where it's like, oh my god, like, this tunnel has amazing, you know, what do you call it,
acoustics.
Like, I just, the most incredible acoustics for this random fucking tunnel to have. So I'm gonna take a moment and enjoy that with myself.
Yeah, it's like really amazing. And what they do for this, like, scene that happens in the tunnel is what I think is fucking awesome. Is that while she's, like, you know, in the midst of this thing, she's singing, a silhouette appears at the other end of the tunnel, and it stands up, and it is a man, from what we can tell, and just starts at first slowly making its way towards her, and then in the same fashion that she's singing, screeches, and its echo begins to basically chase Jesse Buckley.
Yeah, full sprint.
And then he does. Like, it's his echo does first, happening in the same fashion that she was singing. His echo is reaching her, and you know this man starts running to her, and he is on his way, and it's like, what is happening now? Mm-hmm. And from there, it's this thing where, you know, she just had a moment of relief, and it's already come to an end. Like, something very scary is happening, especially, you know, we can't relate as men as much, but a woman being out the woods on her own, and then this thing happens, it's fucking horrifying. So
I think it's a little on the nose to say this, but I think it does bear saying, is like, I think the thesis for this movie really comes down to, like, societally, like, for a lot of men in society, especially, like, given certain situations, and again echoing what her husband says to her, you know, where it's like, men go out of their way to make women a part of their story, and it's not the other way around in their heads, you know.
Yeah.
And so in this moment where this woman is, for the first time in, you know, however long, feeling a feeling of relief, there's this man at the other end of the tunnel who's like, no, I have my own intentions. Like, you're a part of my thing right now.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing your thing, you're doing my thing, and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
That's a great point to make, honestly, because it does seem like that is, like, a huge thing in this movie that just keeps kind of recurring over and over again.
To that point, after that scene, and I think we touched on it earlier, she goes to a church, and she kind of has, like, a weird, I don't want to say religious experience, but she has an experience in the church of feeling some kind of grief or mourning. And she comes out of the church, and there's this guy hanging out there with a mask on, like a woman's mask on. It's really weird.
We should say.
Yeah.
It's like explicitly like not like
played by the main guy, Rory, whatever is played by a grown man.
Which
but
is the only thing that's the only thing that like kind of took me out of it was like I don't know, like the whatever deep fake thing they used like on like that kid to like give him Rory Kinnear's head. It looked.
It still looks like an adult man.
Yeah, it just looked too goofy
it looks
to
weird.
me. Yeah,
it does look weird.
And I don't think it was meant to look weird in the way that it came across, if that makes sense.
Well, but
I do think it was, and I have a point to make about that at some point. I
just want to say like when she comes across this boy, the boy is like, let's play hide and seek. You hide and I seek, which is maybe like also another comment on men where it's like, you know, even in a given situation with a woman, it's like, no. I'm
the one who's gonna make the first
I'm gonna
move
chase
here.
you.
Yeah,
you know, you're the one who has to hide from me. This boy is like, let's play hide and seek, and she says, oh no, I don't want to. She's trying to be polite and be like, no, it's okay, I don't want to do that right now. And this boy gets aggravated and is just like, no. We're gonna play hide and seek. Like you're gonna go hide right now. And the pastor of the church comes up and kind of tells this boy like, hey kid, she doesn't want to play right now. Like go away. And the boy before he walks away,
bitch.
I think he calls her like a cunt or a bitch, and then he tells
bitch.
And he tells the priest to fuck off. And it's like,
I love this, that the priest, he's like, the kid says to the vicar or whatever, he says, oh, why don't you go fuck off? And then got a laugh in the theater too from me.
Yeah,
it's
the
like
priest
the priest
is
going,
like,
you first.
You first. Yeah.
No, it's a very like fun. It's a very good moment of levity of like, oh yeah, this priest is also kind of just like, nah, I'm not playing your game, kid. Like,
yeah. Before you get to their conversation, I do just want to say we are jumping around a lot, but what happens in the woods is that she is stalked by this grotesque man who is also Rory Kinnear, and
covered
he
in
follows
like
her to
cuts
the house
and leaves and shit. Like
every maybe this like should be said. I think we might have said it already, but every man in the movie other than the husband is played by Rory Kinnear. Yeah,
is Rory Kinnear, and I do have a take on that. But I think it's pretty obvious. But also, so this man, Rory Kinnear, grotesque looking, covered in shit, lives in the woods, naked.
Which also implies other intentions too.
Yeah.
Right, and maybe it's worth mentioning that there is some weird symbolic shit with, her showing up to this manor and taking an apple off the tree, biting it, and then Jeffrey, who is also like, Rory Kinnear, says
you can't
that's
do that.
That's a forbidden fruit. You can't do that. Says it's a joke. But there is some weird shit going on there.
That's the scene that got the biggest laugh in my theater, was when he's like, I'm joking.
Weird symbolism like attached to the church moment.
Yeah, Jeffrey is the best character in the movie, for sure.
He is fucking... I
with
think
his
rain
boots and
awesome.
Shit. Oh yeah, well,
rain boots and flannel and jacket, just like every like.
Yeah. And Rory Kinnear does deserve a huge shout out because this is one of those movies, and there have been movies like this for different actors in the past where it's like, this is a movie where this guy is full frontal, like showing you what he can do as an actor because he has so much work to do. And nails it at all times. Yep. Like,
every time. He is so good. This is my intro to Rory Kinnear, and I really am impressed.
And I think this is one of his first, like, being the guy roles, like being the main person in, maybe not the main person, but being like one of the like main actors in the movie, and just kills it so fucking hard. And
but I did want to say there's some symbolism there with like biblical symbolism. I can't actually go into that because I've been thinking about how that ties into everything. But I want to say that the stalker came to where she's staying and then was arrested by Rory Kinnear.
Yeah.
And a woman, this is the other thing, all the women are individualistic. They're not one person, which ties into the point made, and I can just say it now, I think, is that after this traumatic experience that, Jessie Buckley's character Harper has gone through with her husband, it's that all men are now the same to her. She can't, like, get out of this, like, thought, like, it's basically he's ruined men for her. Like, she's like, no, I only see them this way. And each woman in the movie, she's able to see as an individual.
Yeah.
And it's almost like every time she has an encounter with any men in this movie, it just goes bad.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's from her experience or that they are just awful to her, she just cannot trust them. And like I said, just sees them all in the same way.
And to some extent,
for anyone who doesn't,
I was going to say, to some extent, that all, like, well, not even to some extent. I think it's very safe to say that the men, all played by Rory Kinnear, are just different variations of the same character. They're all portraying a different kind of toxic masculinity, whether it's the whether it's the two, like, dudes who are just scowling at her in the bar, who, like, try to just, like, charge her later, like the forceful, like, I'm gonna rape you kind of energy, versus Jeffrey's like, no, you don't get the bags, or no, you don't pay for the drink, I'll do it. Like, even though, like, there's a certain level to that is like, oh no, I'm being polite. She has said no several times, like, no, don't do that, Jeffrey, and he just ignores her.
And
or the
even
vicar being like, well, he hit you first, or no, he hit you,
dude.
but that's not a capital offense.
The
Men
vicar
can do
says
that.
the vicar
Like,
says one of the most insane lines of all time, which is, well, men just hit women sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not, and he says, that's not a capital offense.
It's like, it's not very nice, but it isn't a capital offense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's like
Crazy.
another point to really drive home is, like, the men in this movie are exhibiting very, classic examples of toxic masculinity.
They're all, but it's each one is a different flavor. The
boyish,
masculinity.
the young boyish male masculinity, which is, oh well, girls are just playthings, and even the one that struck me the most, maybe my favorite of all of them, was it's the man in the woods who's naked, where, maybe the most egregious version of male toxicity, where it's, oh, I can't get a read on what this guy is gonna do. It's not even like you said, Jacob, like, there's some very, like, rapey energy coming off of, like, one very specific version of this man, and it's not the one who's, like, naked stalking her. That's, like, the craziest thing. The one that's, like, naked and stalking her, it's like, oh, your intentions could be anything, and it almost doesn't even matter specifically what you want to do to this woman. It's the fact that, like, you are going to do something to her, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
there are moments in the movie where the guy is, like, approaching her and, like, does just a very abstract thing where it's not like,
just looking
I've
at
now
her
come
through
to
the
grab
window.
you. It's now I'm just staring at you.
I'm just staring at you. I'm playing with your, like, mailbox thing, not, like, trying to grab you. I'm just poking my hand in to see what's up with this. Yeah. Like,
I do just want to
vicar's-
say
yeah,
the
no, go
one
ahead.
really important thing that the vicar said before he says, like, men hit or whatever, and that's not a capital offense, is that he tells her, like, I'm sure you feel guilty for pushing him
to
kill
it.
him.
Right.
Yeah. I really, that, like, that hit different for me for some
Well,
reason.
and he like, with the hitting her thing, when he, like, kind of tries to pass it off like, oh, that's just something men do, he even goes, like, beyond that to be like, listen, like, men hit women, and then men are supposed to be given an ability to apologize, and as long as the man apologizes, it's
okay.
almost like it's almost like he didn't even hit you, right? And it's like, again, I'm like
I don't know. The vicar, to me, was like, at that first scene, I felt him to be, like, the most, like, I don't know, like, on the nose in preaching that toxic masculinity, but he kind of, like, grew on me in a weird way. Not where I liked him, but I was like, oh no, there's more to what he is supposed to represent.
There's something about the man of God character where no matter what they say, there's a air of, like, oh, well, he's backed by like the highest power,
Yeah.
right? Like what he's saying isn't just his opinion, it's like biblical law, you
Yeah.
know?
And then later on,
it's
like
so nuts.
when he shows up again, what really like made me go like, oh, that it's more to it than that, was because he's like not like getting handsy with her, but like he puts his hand on her leg when he's like comforting her, and it kind of lingers for a long time. When she gets up to leave, he kind of like is like looking at the spot where
Feels
she
the
was on the
warmth
bench,
of
yeah,
where she sat.
and then
so
yeah, when
yeah, go ahead.
but when I won't spoil what happens because I know we kind of want to go into sequence, but when he shows up again later, he mentions like a lot of like Agamemnon and like talking about temptation and all that, and how he's like he says a bunch of accusatory shit like that basically boils down to like, how dare you like tempt me, and all she's done is exist in the same space as him. Like she hasn't done anything to like,
Well, dude, that's
so
like
much.
in Philly, you know, I'm a pretty like I'm in a relationship. I'm very faithful, but also like there's a thing in Philly that I didn't think existed in the world that is just like catcalling. You think about like the 1950s like construction worker in New York being like, "Hey, what's up, toots?" That kind of stuff, but it's like in Philly that shit exists in such a toxic way where even like my girlfriend has come home from work and been like, "Oh yeah, this guy on the subway platform like for 10 minutes straight would not leave me alone." And I don't know how to navigate those situations. And I always just tell her, I'm like, you don't ignore him, but you don't want to acknowledge him too much where he thinks he's been invited in.
Yeah.
And dude, this movie made me feel so bad for women as a whole, because like women have it very hard in a male dominated world for sure, but just seeing a very like blatant in your face like, no, men are monsters. Like men are like monsters in the night that like the lights go out when they show up kind of shit was very
towards the
again,
end of the movie, literally lights go out when they show up.
I think you know there's times in movies where brevity is important, but this is one of those movies that's like, no, actually, like, we need to be very blatant about the things that are going on right now. There's really not a lot of room for nuance. There's not a lot of room for, like, you know, argument here. It's like, these men are imposing on her. This is just a woman who came to this place alone. Even, you know, like, in the beginning of the movie, when she first shows up at the manor, she has, like, registered for the manor with her married name, like, Mrs. whatever her husband's last name is. And Jeffrey, the caretaker, asks her like where her husband is, and it's like, no. I'm actually this is just me. Like, this is my time. This is what I'm doing. Like, I didn't have to okay this with my husband, you know? Like, I didn't have to okay this with the men in my life. I'm just on vacation trying to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And at every turn, these men in the village are like, oh, a girl, a woman, like I can get off on like doing this shit to her no matter what it is. And again, the vicar, who is a likable character when you first meet him, because he comes across, and again, it might be male toxicity where it's like the male comforter who's like, oh, you know, don't worry, lady, I won't let these other men
for you. Yeah, the knight in shining armor, like I'm here to protect you from these scoundrels, but I'm not like them.
I have no urges. Later on,
so funny that you guys think that way though about the vicar, because I have just such a like skewed view on that, like priests in general, that when I saw him, I did find him to just be the most disturbing, like, because priests are like the most suppressed. So
well, he's the hidden intentions of man. Like, he's the man who is, you know, he has like ulterior motives, but he is under this facade of, oh, I could never have ulterior motives. I'm a man of God. Everything I do is of the moral ethic right, you know?
Yeah. There was like this, like, he was on screen, and because it was this movie, and I already had that kind of like preset in my mind that something weird is going to happen, that men are bad as I'm watching it. he was the most disturbing, being the
Men
most,
are awful and will hurt
suppressed.
you.
And yeah, and I just was looking at him like a fucking soda that had been shaken up, and like the
Waiting
cap
to
was
pop.
about to pop off.
Yeah.
Like I was very uncomfortable when
Well,
he was on
and
screen.
there's like a literal rapist man, that is like kind of shown to us, and then later, it's the priest, it's the man of God who actually corners her alone and is trying to justify in that moment like why it's okay for him to sexually assault this person.
Yeah.
Because she tempted him and she has like made a decision that it has to be this way.
Right.
He asked her
because I know you had like comments on that scene in general. You were saying.
Well, I didn't I know we were trying to stick to like kind of a linear approach, and I feel like we got away from that. I don't remember. So
yeah, it's just a few more, like basically what leads up to that point. Because it all kind of pops off by the time we're getting to that priest shit. Is that what happens before the big pop off in the movie is that the man was arrested who was stalking her. She then later goes to the local pub. She sees Jeffrey. She sees these two other guys. Everyone's Rory Kinnear, and then the police officer comes in, Rory Kinnear, and like kind of very lightly says, "Oh yeah, we had to let the dude go who like tried breaking into your house and like all that," and she's kind of like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? And they're like, oh, he's just, he's harmless. He's harmless. And like, we just had to let him go. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. And she's like, well, he did. He like tried breaking into my house. And who the fuck knows?
My favorite line in the movie is she says he stalked me. I saw him twice, and the cop's like, "Well, I don't think he saw you once." And then all of the men kind of laugh at that. Like, I really liked that.
Fucked up. Yeah. Like she's in this nightmare, and like everyone is kind of like laughing it off. Like, the police officer even says to her, "Well, I guess like just call me again if it happens."
Yeah,
but,
let me know.
Being a woman, it's like, oh, like. Could be dead the next time.
I shouldn't have to wait till he fucking does it again for you to do your job. Like, what the fuck?
Isn't there a thing where, like, isn't it not crazy to think that, oh, I got caught this time. If I'm going to do it again, I should like really do the
actually
thing. Like,
go through with whatever my intentions are. Yeah,
it's even scarier. Like this next time around, and like, what do you know? It actually does happen that way, where she's then walking home from the pub, and this same naked guy is stalking her in the night.
One of my favorite shots in movie history is this amazing. They frame this amazing shot where it's like she's on the roadway walking, and in the background there's a hill with a like moonlit graveyard where you see the silhouette of this naked man like stalking her in the night. I got like full on werewolf vibe. I was like, this is a literal monster stalking her through the night. And, I keep going back to it. I normally don't like movies that are so on the nose. And I'm sure there are subtleties in this movie that are there to be admired. But I think the strongest point this movie makes is the very blatant in your face, like, men are awful and will hurt you. Like, I just keep coming back to that where it's like, all these movies get so much praise for subtext and themes, and this movie is like, no, we're all themes. We're only themes. Like,
shout out Rob Hardy, who is the cinematographer of this movie.
So
he's
good.
Done,
very, very good.
He's done Mission Impossible Fallout, Ex Machina, Annihilation, Devs. He's just kind of kicks ass, especially in this movie.
I watched. So what I want to say is, like, you guys saw it in theaters, right? Both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
I watched it online, and it was a very poorly done, like, rip of the movie where the camera they were using had like autofocus, and so there were scenes like the tunnel scene. Watching this movie, I really want to see it in theaters, because the whole time I was watching this movie for the podcast, I'm thinking like there's a lot for me to talk about thematically and like what's going on with the grander movie, but I definitely robbed myself of the cinematic experience where it's just like the tunnel scene specifically I keep going back to because the autofocus was so bad in the tunnel because of the way it's lit. But I imagine that on camera in a theater or even just, on a TV, not from like a Sony fucking or like a GoPro in the theater, right? I couldn't
GoPro.
Yeah. I couldn't really admire the movie the way that I think it deserved, because there are some shots in this movie that are just like so grandiose and indulgent. Like if you're a film nerd, and that's something A24, I think normal people who aren't like movie buffs the way I am, A24 is one of the few production companies left where it's like, no. The classes that directors take on cameras and like the way that you film shit, it's like Marvel and all these other Disney movies like do so much to fuck up that idea where it's like, oh yeah, it matters that every scene isn't just like 8 characters all in the foreground and a bunch of shit going on in the background. It's like, this movie set their shots up so well. I think there's a lot to be said about the unsung heroes of film, where it's like the people who scouted this movie picked the most beautiful location to film it. Like, you couldn't have picked a better spot to film a movie like this. The amount of like just the woods that she goes into, these old barns that 100 years ago were like full of life and horses and people doing work. They talk about the fact that like the manor she's staying in is like 500 years old. Yeah. And as a moviegoer, I'm like, I bet that house is 500 years old. I bet the real house they're filming in is 500 years old right now. Like it looks, even through the shit experience I got, I could really tell. I was like, this movie is gorgeous. The way that like another A24 movie we mentioned earlier, Midsommar. I love Midsommar for the themes and the acting and all that shit, but Midsommar, above all else, is one of the most beautiful movies shot on film in recent memory. And I don't think the normies, I hate to use the word normies, but I think that the normies who watch A24 movies, they don't have that kind of thing. Yeah, they might appreciate it subconsciously where they're like, oh, this looks great right now. But as a fan of film, you see a movie and like I've called back to, Hateful Eight is a Tarantino movie that, some people don't have a lot of love for. But I watch Hateful Eight and I'm like, this movie is just shot so fucking beautifully at every turn. Like the opening scene of Hateful Eight where they're slowly panning out on this like grave mound and mountainside in the background. It's just some of the most gorgeous shit you'll ever see. And I think the everyday moviegoer isn't appreciating that. And not to beleaguer the point, but the trailer for this movie does not speak to the character of the film. This isn't just like a horror movie. Like I tried to convince someone to go see it with me in theaters before I just decided to watch it at home. And when I was trying to describe it to them and I showed them the trailer, they were like, "Oh, I'm just not interested in a horror movie right now." And having seen the movie, it's like, "Oh, this isn't like Insidious or like a Conjuring. Like this is, even just in a more refined sense, this isn't a Hereditary. Like, this is going to freak you out for way different reasons."
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about, like, especially if you are a man. I mean, I'm sure being a woman, too, it makes you think on a deeper level. But, like, as a man, like you said it earlier, it's like, oh, I feel bad for being a guy, in a sense. And it's not like I'm like, oh, fuck that movie for making me feel that way. It's like I feel like I have perspective, like
we all have a little Jeffrey in all of us.
Yeah, we all have a little Jeffrey. I went to a party.
Jeffrey is a gentleman, okay? Jeffrey is a gentle giant, all right?
Went to a party 2 nights ago, and I was like behind the bar, and mind you, like I saw this movie twice. I saw it the second time today. So 2 nights ago, I had seen it, and I have been thinking a lot about it. and I was like behind this bar acting as bartender, at this person's house, and like I made these drinks, and when I poured out the drinks, there were these women in front of me at the bar, and I told them what it was and everything, and like nobody took drinks, and I felt like I was like, oh yeah, I get that. Like there's like they could be thinking like, what if this guy drugged the drinks or whatever,
Right.
and
Unless I
I
saw
was
him
like,
make it step by step, I can't trust
yeah,
it.
and
Yeah,
I don't
like,
blame them at all for that, and it made me feel like, oh yeah, I gotta like.
You're like a
be
magician
better
being
about
like,
this.
see, there's nothing up my pocket. There's nothing up my sleeves right now. Like,
I took one and drank it in front of them, and I was like, it's cranberry juice and
see,
vodka,
you just
that's
drank,
what
you
it is,
drink
and,
all of them in front of them, and then
I
you're just like,
should've,
you missed out on some really good drinks. There's no roofies in here at all.
and I'm totally roofied out then at that point. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, there's that crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a crazy like 30-second video from it's like one of the music fests from a couple years ago, maybe South by Southwest, where it's like a VIP party. This woman is taking like a selfie video, doing like a 360 look at the room, and in the video, she wouldn't have seen it like in her own like first person perspective, living in that moment. She would not have seen this happen, but the video slow-mos to this guy like Michael Jordan shooting a fucking free throw into her drink, like drugs her drink on video.
So fucked up.
And I
can't stand that. Like
I have long I think it's men when they're trying to pick up women and like whatever, we all have our own kind of like confidence in where we come from. I really feel a confidence of being like, listen, I'm a man and I understand. Like I tell women all the time, and I sometimes feel like a double agent where I'm like, men are pigs. Like, honey, like just like little insider information. Like the guy who's trying to
don't trust me.
Yeah. No, like the guy who's trying to treat you like a princess and make you think he's your Prince Charming. He has ulterior motives, okay? And then
Fucked, yeah.
As a man, like, in this Me Too era, I have joked before where I'm like, well, I can pretty confidently say I'm not gonna get Me Too'd. Like, if I ever get famous, I'm not gonna have anyone come out of the woodwork and be like, he drugged me, he did this or that. Like, the worst thing I'm gonna hear in the Me Too era is like, he was a child and didn't like respond emotionally in the right way. Like,
it's funny you say that, like you were like being a double agent, or like kind of, because that's like ultimately when we get to the climax of the movie, skipping a little bit like ahead, we find out that like Jeffrey, who has been this like sort of like the only real like male figure that like she can somewhat confide in, like he shows up when like the window breaks and she thinks the guy's breaking into the house. He like buys her the drink even though she's like no it's fine, like carries in all her bag. Like he's the only man who seems to not have any sort of like malintent behind him, and then she accidentally hits him with the car, and and immediately he's like, you fucking bitch, and like freaks out.
Well, so
like,
I think
I did all this for you, and this is how you treat me. Like, it doesn't say that, but that's the vibe that I got.
He is truly the like chivalry is dead character, where he's like the last gentleman, and he thinks that like the way he is,
succeeds is just be as nice as possible, and then he will be rewarded. Yeah,
exactly. Like, because even if he's not looking, in some of these guys are very specifically their intent is sex or violence against this woman.
Yeah,
his desire of this woman is, oh, I just want you to like admire me and think that I'm a man. So when there is a
she goes home, I should say. Yeah, she like the scene we talked about with like the person in the background. She goes home. She FaceTimes her friend and is like this is all the shit that happened. This priest said that it's my fault. My husband is dead. They let the creepy guy go, and all the people at the pub were fucking assholes. Her friend is like, okay, well, I'm driving over to you. Where's the address? And then shit hits the fan.
Yeah, and so one of the men like tries to break into the house, and that's where Jeffrey shows up. And it's
one of the rapey people from the pub that we saw earlier.
And the character of Jeffrey like shows up, and he says to her, like, because in this moment she can't trust any of these men who, like, again, all have the exact same face, right? Like she knows that she can't trust any of these people, and Jeffrey shows up and he says to her, like, what is the line? He's like, you don't have what it takes to be like a man on the battlefield or something. Yeah.
And he basically says, yeah, you were always like a failed army man. Or
yeah. And you know, she like takes a minute and she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, that's what my dad told me. Like a bunch of times my dad told me that I'm like I look like I want to be an army man, but I couldn't hack it, basically. And
then immediately like has to go outside and do the "you're not safe here," and he just looks so uncomfortable as he's doing it.
So he takes on the role of the protector, and again, like, I think that there's, like, if we're gonna talk in the grander sense of gender dynamics in the history of humanity, there's a great line, I've talked about it before in True Detective, where the one character asks Ed what's his name? Fucking Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson asks Matthew McConaughey, he's like, do you think we're bad men? And Matthew McConaughey says, yeah, we're bad men. We're the bad men who keep the other bad men from the door. And I think that's an issue with a male-dominated society with hundreds of thousands of years of men being in the top of the power structure, is like, even those better masculine qualities of being the protector, it's like, you're the protector against other men. Yeah. There's never been a band of women who's come and burnt down a town and raped all the women, right? Like, it's men who are doing that. And Jeffrey takes on the role of like the man who's keeping the bad man from the door, and he goes out into the yard and he gives the most half-hearted, like, hey, you
listen here, this won't sit well with me.
Stop that.
I love that. Yeah, this won't sit well with me.
Yeah, he says, this won't sit well with me.
One of the funniest lines of all time. Yeah, if you have a problem with her, it does not sit well with me. Like he's, and that is a form of toxic masculinity.
Waits 5 seconds, gets no reply, and he's like, well, it seems like that's all taken care of. Then,
yeah, exactly. Like, mission accomplished, boys. We're going home. Like, but that is another level of toxic masculinity for sure. And this movie has made me analyze my life so hard, where it's like, is it even like, should I feel guilty in those moments? Like, there have been moments where I'm walking in the streets with Jazz, and there's this creepy dude like kind of shuffling over to Jazz, and I completely get that level of like, I'm gonna just put my arm around her and pull her a little closer so he knows that he's gonna have to fuck with me if he wants to bother her. Yeah. It's like, that in and of itself is a level of toxic masculinity, being the protector, because it's like, oh, well, she couldn't survive in these mean streets if it weren't for me, you know? And I think watching this movie as a man, and maybe the intention of the trailer was to trick a bunch of dudes into coming and seeing it and have to confront the worst parts of their, subconscious. But even I, a person who has been pretty above the board with the women in my life, even I have stuff to analyze, where it's like, oh yeah, that one time where I kind of got off a little bit, getting to be like, oh, well, I'm the big tough man that's protecting this little tiny woman. It's like, it's not fair for me to put that on this girl, even if it's a reality, like, even if you take it hundreds of years ago, where men, and there are parts of the world now where men just will go out in gangs and hunt down women. Like, you hear about it all the time. There was that very famous story in India about that woman who was like gang raped on a bus, and no one did anything because there were like 15 fucking guys who were all like, oh, this is what's happening. It's like, you think about your life and you're like, if I stand up to that, I am doing the right thing in reality, but I'm still gaining something out of it, being like, but I'm the honorable one. I'm the one who's above board. I'm the man that you can trust. Like that's what it is. Is like being like all these other men, you can't trust them, but me, I'm very trustworthy. Like I would never hurt you the way they want to hurt you, and I'll protect you from that. And that's a problem. Like the fact that we, at least me personally, I can admit, I gain a little bit of confidence from that. Being like, I'm the guy at the door keeping the other guys from coming in. Like that's a negative aspect of being a man for sure. Not the fact that you're a protector, but the fact that it's like, oh, I'm protecting this woman. This woman couldn't protect herself in these moments.
When your ego is like getting off on that is like that's like I was talking to this really religious guy and we were talking about how it was like when you do something that is good, like you need to do it for the sake of it being good, because you can like trick yourself into being like, oh yeah, like, oh, I'm so good when I do this. It's like that's when you're actually not doing the good thing anymore, is when you're starting to be like, oh yeah, like this would make me look good and I'll do it for that reason of making me look good, even though you're doing the good thing. It's like it becomes tainted ego. And he was like, that in itself, this is a Christian guy, and he was like, that in itself is like becomes a sin. You know, you need to, that's pride, and you need to watch out for that.
Exactly.
And it was like really interesting, and like that I think just kind of goes with what you're talking about. But
no, listen, if I could get a little personal, and I don't want to I do not want this to come off as a humble brag. I'm not self-sucking at all. This is very real. Last week I was on a subway platform in Philadelphia, and there was this guy clearly on drugs running back and forth on the platform, and I had this thought in my head where I'm like, this guy's gonna jump out onto the platform. And lo and behold, 10 seconds after I had that thought, this guy dives head first onto the platform in his drug-fueled mania and falls onto the tracks. And me and another guy pulled this guy from the tracks. And I pulled him. It's taken a lot to analyze this, but I pulled him from the tracks with this other guy, and the only reason I did it was so that my train wouldn't be delayed because this asshole is on the tracks. And I don't know what this other guy's intentions were, but we pulled this guy from the tracks, the cops came, I made my train, I got to the gym, and while I was at the gym, I was like thinking about it, and I texted Jazz about it, where I was like, I just did this weirdly good thing for a guy, I just like helped save a guy, right? Like it wasn't so dramatic, like the train was coming and we only had moments to get him off the tracks. We had plenty of time. It was a very casual thing. But I at the gym, I had this weird, I was like doing ab crunches and I started crying, and it was because I felt conflicted, because I was like, oh, I didn't pull this guy off the tracks because it was just the right thing to do. And after I pulled him off the tracks, I didn't get like a pat on the back. I didn't get paraded through the city. They didn't give me the key to the city. Like I didn't get any like what do you call it? Like praise for it, right? The way like a dog needs to be praised for doing the right things. Yeah. And it fucked with me, because I was thinking to myself, where I'm like, I did this thing that I feel like I deserve someone to give me an attaboy for, and I don't deserve that attaboy. Like I don't need someone to come and tell me like you did a good thing. Like, and it really fucked with me.
What you did, like, and no offense, it was like that was almost like a sociopathic like.
Oh yeah.
To do it, like.
Yeah, no, I only bring it up, because I think if I brought it up in a way of like, oh, I'm the greatest, I helped this poor soul, right? But no, I just helped this guy out of the train tracks because no one else was gonna help, and I wanted to get to the gym. I was already like angry. I'm like, fuck, I gotta go to the gym. It's a Friday night. I want to do my own thing. I'm going to the gym, and it's like, how dare this fucking asshole fall onto the tracks and try to ruin my night?
I gotta save you.
Yeah. I gotta. Now I gotta make sure you don't fucking make my night a whole thing, but no, like I think that there's,
But
I think that a
speaking
lot of men do the right thing because they are expecting that, oh, good boy, pat on the head, you're a real good boy, you know, and that's that. We've talked about it very early on in the podcast. We're talking the first year of this podcast. That thing of like, do you run into the burning building? Like, are you a person who could run into the burning building, who could run into the collapsing World Trade Center? And beyond that, like, if you are capable of running into that building to help people, why are you running into that building? Are you running into that building because you have a sense of someone has to run into this building? Or are you running into that building because it's like, oh, well, I get to be the hero. People are watching and people will know that I did the right thing.
Yeah. I think that, like, goes to, like, the thing, like, what you just said also is that, you know, the train wasn't coming. So the situation seemed, like, very doable. It's like...
I could have sat down and I could have smoked a cigarette before I fucking pulled him out, you know? Like, so much
running
time.
into, like, the falling tower of, like, you know, when 9/11 happened is a whole different thing where it's like, I feel like those people who actually ran in, it was not be like people are watching. It was like, because that situation seems so bad. It's like, well, they're running to their deaths. Like, that's what I think everyone's mindset was. So the people that did run into there, I think it would be hard for them to be like, people are watching. Like, that's almost a bit in itself to be.
Yeah.
It's a right or something, but like that would be so insane, and that person would have to be like so far
I think
gone
Steve Buscemi talked about it because Steve
extent.
Buscemi was a 9/11 first responder. You know, already an established actor living in New York at the time, and he responded to 9/11, and he went into those buildings, and he's talked about it. I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure I've seen an interview where he talks about it, where it's like, yeah, you know, it was really hard for like a couple years after the fact to deal with like this hero complex that was thrust upon my shoulders, because, you know, all these people on the outside are looking at it like I literally face down like the fire and the brimstone of hell. And for me, it was my job. It was the, you know, the right thing to do, because I had taken that oath of like, I'm going to put my life behind others, you know, like other people have to make it through the door before I do. And yeah, there's definitely like a famous interview with him talking about like, you know, because for a year or two after 9/11, like, you show up to a bar and you're a firefighter and you're getting free drinks and women are throwing themselves at you and shit, and it's like, you know, that show Rescue Me kind of glamorized. I think if you haven't watched the show, there's this sense that it's like, oh, it's the fucking cool guy firefighter show. It was like so cool, he doesn't give a fuck about himself. But even that show does a good job of being like, no, it's hard to be the hero. Like the hero has baggage. There's
women are thrusting themselves upon me, but it's like also just reminding me of why they're doing that, and like that was a horrible thing I went through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But speaking of horrible things that somebody went through, after Jeffrey does...
Oh my god. More masculine toxicity.
Jesus.
I just made it about myself for like 10 minutes right there.
After Jeffrey does his due diligence to scare off anyone trying to
trippy
ruin
alert. This is when the film gets like just the most tripped out it can. Like it's been trippy, now it's just full trip.
I gotta say, this third act, I did not see coming. I was watching the show over the course of like, it's an hour and a half movie. I think I watched it in like 2 hours, because every like 20 minutes I was like pausing it to go like literally cook bacon for my diet that I'm on right now. And you know, I kept coming back to it. I did not see the third act coming, and not that I wasn't engaged with the first 2 acts of the film, but the third act was this thing where like the oven timer for the bacon went off, and I was like, no, I can't pause right now. Like I can't take a moment away from this movie.
For the top captivating shit. So it's like now all of the men that she has encountered are basically fused into one. This goes into like what I was saying earlier, that her like depiction of men is like all the same. They're all this damaged person who is my damaged past, and they're all coming at me at once, and there's nowhere to hide. So just a bunch of stuff happens. I don't know if anyone has any like particular interest. I know you said you, Jacob, had interest in like what the priest had done to her, because this is kind of where,
yeah. Because
it starts off with the vicar. The vicar forces himself.
The boy first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
because she comes
it's
in
not
and
even
the
the boy first. It's the random dude from the bar charges
the
getting
door,
her into the house,
and then Jeffrey shows up to protect her.
Shows up. And
then
it's actually the nature man. This man who
like sticks his hand through the mail slot, and
well, there's like some weird symbolism going on here too. Is that this like weird nature man has like also goes back to the altar in the church, that there is like a depiction of a man's face, and it's like also that of a leaf. On the other side of this altar is like a depiction of a woman like spreading her womb open, whether it's for birth or not. It is. I think you're right though, Jacob. It is for that, and there's the symbolism going on where like this face of man, this nature, and you're seeing this man who's stalking her from the woods. He is becoming this leaf man basically, and I think this is to be interpreted as like this is like man's true nature. This is the primal version of what a man wants. He's unpredictable. He's out there to hurt you. He's definitely, and there's symbolism with the dandelions throughout the movie that like it's, I think, to be interpreted as like men spreading their seed, because what the nature man does.
The most on the nose moment for me.
Yeah,
I was like,
he blows dandelion like pollinated little things to her. One goes into her, and then like this is where all the crazy shit just really pops off. But he is becoming more and more like this thing of nature, this force of nature, and so she manages to like actually just like after this thing happens to her, just kind of walks inside slowly, and
that's maybe one of the most interesting parts of the movie is that again, aside from like the rapist man who is very upfront and full bore, the nature man is the most scary, the most like, you think he's gonna do exactly. Yeah. The most enigmatic, the most evil of the men he's depicted as, and then he just lets her go back into the safety of the house. He could have done, because he corners her before he, like, when he blows these like pollinated daisies in her face, he corners her in the garden, and that's the moment of the movie where I was like, oh, we're about to do like a horrific rape scene, and I just don't want to see that. But no, he blows these daisies in her face and then just kind of lets her go
and leaves. And isn't that so much like a man? His primal nature is to bust a nut and bounce.
And then bounce.
Like, and I'm not even kidding.
And then the moment,
like what that was.
And then the moment he's like, and then she goes in the house and shuts the door, and all is well. And then he's like, okay, give me more, and she's like, no,
right.
Stabs
him in the arm, and in a very disturbing way, he's putting his arm through a mail slot. Like, the knife is like
in his like elbow, and he like pulls it back, like cutting his arm in two as he goes.
Splits it, he splits his arm.
The same wound that her actual husband like had got from when he jumped off the building. His arm landed on like a fence, and it tore it up through the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The other thing I didn't catch either is that the nature guy has a broken ankle for some reason when he shows up again.
That's later. At first he does not.
But that was
have the broken ankle later. Once it's becoming clear that this is
that was another thing.
Husband.
Yeah, that her husband happened, and I didn't get that at first. But yeah. So nature guy shoots a shot, doesn't.
Yep. He goes and fucks off back into the woods, and
then the boy is having sex with the dead bird that broke the window.
God, so disturbing because when you first see this boy, he's wearing this like weird cartoony like woman mask.
It's like Marilyn
And then-
Monroe or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
Now
the-
he has it on the crow's head, and he's like kind of humping the crow with this mask on its face, and it's really fucked up. And this is when you see that the boy's arm is also fucked up, like how the Nature Man's arm was. This is just going to be how all the men are now.
Yeah.
From here.
Well, and again, on the nose shit, like this movie, this is the moment where they drop the facade, you know,
Yeah.
because there's a part in this movie early on when they're at the bar, and like there's like 5 Rory McKellen was
Rory
is that his name?
Kinnear.
Rory Kinnear.
Jesus.
There's like 5 Rory Kinnears in the bar, and that's when I texted you. I texted the group chat, and I was like, "How does fucking chick not notice that all 5 of these guys have the same exact face right now?" But this is the moment in the film where it kind of drops the facade of like all men are the same, and it's like, no, literally all of these men are the same being. Like,
Yeah.
and the boy is still trying to play hide and seek with her. Again, the boyish toxic masculinity of it's like almost like he doesn't have the worldview he doesn't have the intelligence to understand
Yep.
that he is
And even he again is like, we're gonna play hide and seek. I'll count to 10, and then she shuts the door on him, and she starts counting.
yeah.
And he says something like, no, I'm supposed to count or something
He
like
gets
that.
mad.
Like,
He gets mad that she's like not playing his game,
the
and
way
again,
that he
that's
wants it done. Yeah.
the male toxicity where it's like, I don't even have the intelligence to understand that you are switching the playing field on me right now, but it's supposed to go my way. Like, I have this primal instinct that I'm supposed to be the one in charge, and
yeah.
I don't remember how the boy ends up fucking off ultimately.
Well,
but
what happens in that moment is that the dude from the bar busts through another door and chases her
Okay.
upstairs to the bathroom.
And that's when
she
the
shuts
vicar
the
shows
door,
up.
and then the vicar shows up, opening up the door. And Jacob, I know
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like
well,
you
no-
had the most to
Well,
say.
well, no, I just really liked it because I got pretty early on. I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is just different flavors of toxic masculinity, and it kind of bummed me out because with the vicar, it just felt like, oh, is that all what he's going to be used for? Is just being the like, oh, well, it was your fault. Like I didn't like because I thought that that's what all they were going to use him for, but then there was this whole other level to him where he was like, I'm just trying to live my life, and you're tempting me because you just exist, and how dare you just exist because you're making my life harder, whether you like it or not.
even like back to
yeah.
Bible shit where it's like, even the Bible, like the oldest scriptures, like shit talk women for tempting men, and it's like, no, she's just literally folding clothing right now, and this guy is just horny for her.
I don't remember what old text it's from, but he quotes Agamemnon, and that the character of Agamemnon is sort of like the person who's always there, like distracting and messing things up for the main characters. And I forget if it's like the Odyssey or something. It's like one of those old like poems or whatever, those like biblical like poems, but he's like sort of equating her to like no matter like what he does, like she's just always there, like in the back. And I think in this scenario, it's meant to be like literally, oh, you, Jesse Buckley, are making me, Priest Kinnear, have a hard time, but
yeah,
the general overarching thing is like, I'm trying to be good and live my life, and you're making it harder for me. You're not
just
letting
over
me,
here with your boobs,
and your pussy, making it really hard for me to not.
No.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do my job every day with knowing that you have boobs?
Knowing that those boobs exist out there in the world somewhere. Yeah. No.
I liked how you guys just mentioned. You just made me think about this. That when it's the boy on the other side of the door and she starts counting, she's trying to flip the script of what's trying to happen in the bathroom. The same thing happens. he puts her up, and it's like he's about to like
penetrate
rape her
her
in a way.
and then
what
she
happens
penetrates
is
him.
that she. Oh, thanks, Jake. You can't even let me do it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why go ahead? You just said it. Anyway,
No.
it's nice that she's like flipping the script. Or too, I like it's like she's fighting back, like trying to put, you just said it, the tip of his head in her, and she puts the tip of the knife in him. And,
Even
like, kinda
before
pushes
that,
back.
she's holding the knife, and he knows she's got a knife,
Yeah.
and he still tries to force himself on her.
That was one other thing I liked about the boy, is that she's like, I have a knife, and he's like, you won't use it, and he like walks right up like to where it's against him, and he's like,
another thing of toxic masculinity, where it's like all or nothing in this moment, zero-sum game. Like, I'm either gonna die right now to bust this nut, or like you're gonna give in because you don't actually want to kill me.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking outside of this moment. You're thinking that it's not a zero-sum game, and that at the end of the day, you're gonna have to go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and live with the consequences. Me, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm just a kid. I'm just a young boy with nothing to lose. Like,
I think.
Man, I fucking hate myself. Like, this whole movie has made me look back on so much shit in my life where I'm like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, there's no forgiveness for the shit I've done.
But yeah, so after the priest, though, I think that's where she runs out of the house, right? And that's where Jeffrey reveals, like, what the fuck? I've been nice to you all this time, and now you just fucking run me over.
Yeah, after she stabs the priest, she runs out of the house and gets into her Ford Fiesta. Weird product placement, a Ford Fiesta.
Because they say that a couple times, I think.
Yeah, in the northern parts of the United Kingdom, Ford is getting a shout out, and it's like she gets in her Ford Fiesta, speeds down the road, and she hits Jeffrey. And again, Jeffrey, who the whole movie has just been the nicest fucking guy, didn't deserve any of this stuff. And maybe, in fact, that is a message on, like, oh, like, Jeffrey didn't even do anything to hurt her like these other men did. Like, these other men deserve to get hit by the car. Yeah. Jeffrey doesn't deserve to get hit by a car, but he is suffering from the, like, actions of other men. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I think there is something to be said about, like, even men, like, even the good men can't get away because of the few bad apples in the bunch. Like,
exactly.
Even the few men who have never raped anyone still have to deal with the fact that Bill Cosby exists, right? Like,
there's a really good TikTok that where I think that it was trying to say one thing and ended up coming across completely different, but it was a woman saying, what does it mean to be a man? And then a dude, like, lists off, like, all the negative shit of being a man, and it's all shit like what you just said, Rob, of, like, because other men rape and hit women and do awful things, I'm now, because of those bad apples, all women, one of their first reactions when they see me is, oh, could this guy overpower me and do awful things to me? And dealing with the psychology of, like, oh, that's whenever I meet a woman, that thought could be in her head. Like, well, I really like that angle.
That's that thing where it's like, God, I've been in a relationship for 5 years, but, like, back when I was on Tinder and I would, like, set up a date with a girl, I never, like, texted other dudes, like, okay, so I'm gonna be meeting this guy at this bar, this is his name, like, just check up on me in a couple hours. Even, like, this girl that I was with before I was with Jazz, the first time I met her, like, I'm a fucking loser, and I invited her to see me do comedy at an open mic, a bullshit open mic, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna bring my aunt, like, she's in town. Her aunt was, like, weirdly only, like, a couple years older than her, right? And so brings her aunt with her. Her aunt's a total buzzkill, and I can't, like, make my moves during this shitty open mic. And even then, it's like, oh yeah, you weren't just gonna, like, show up and get in my car and, like, do all, like, and that's something, again, like, I don't, it's self-aggrandizing to be like, oh, I'm one of the good ones, like, I'm one of the ones who admits that men are pigs and tries to always, like, it's always been my thing is like, with women, I always try to make my intentions clear. Like, I used to do a stand-up joke, actually, that was one of the jokes I got the best responses from audiences, where it's like, you know, we all, as men, we feel that thing where it's like, we're taller than a woman, and we're walking on the same street as her, and we're like 20, 30 paces back, and we see her looking over her shoulder at us, and we're picking a pace on her because we walk faster, and I'm not chasing you, and you can't then, like, slow your pace when you notice those looks, because then she's gonna think, oh god, he doesn't want me to think he's chasing me. Like, it's even, you know, there's all this shit that adds up where it's like, even just being on the street and walking behind a woman, I wish I could scream up to her, like, I'm not gonna rape you, like, I'm not even, you're not even on my radar right now, but because of these other men, you know, like, not to be like, oh, the plight of men, but there's, like, a very real thing where it's like, oh yeah, I wish I was one of those millionaire men who could just do whatever they want, but I'm not. And even though I'm not as powerful or as bad as those men are, like, because again, the worst I'm gonna do is, like, make a girl uncomfortable on my multi-million-dollar yacht, right? But I'm gonna take you back to shore. Like, you don't have to worry. I'm not gonna threaten to leave you out here, right? Even I have to suffer with the whole, like, yeah, there are bad guys out there, and
so
it sucks. Being a man sucks. We have it so hard.
Especially
men have it so hard.
Especially if you're the men in this movie, because after Jeffrey gets run over, he, like, rips her out of the car, drives off, and then she's just kind of like, okay, well, fuck, now what do I do? And then he comes back, and that's one of my favorite moments in the movie. Is like, just like pure, like, not, like, no reason other than I thought it was funny, but I just really loved, like, the 2-second cut to, like, him in the driver's seat being like, yeah, like, laughing. Like, it just made me laugh so hard.
Well, and that's like,
you just
such
cut, like, because you don't even see the car around him. You just cut to Jeff with, like, a tight on his face for 2 seconds, and he's like, yeah. Like,
well, because this is the craziest shit that's ever, like, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened to him, because he got run over by a woman. And the most fury that he is gonna put out there, he's not gonna beat this woman. He rips her out of the car to be like, I'm taking this from you. Like, the way, like, an adult takes away, like, fireworks from a child. It's like, you're gonna hurt yourself with this car, so I have to confiscate it right now. And you know, even he, like, as an adult, the weirdest thing about being an adult, I think, is, like, those little moments where you truly don't give a fuck about, like, who sees you, where you're just like, I won! I'm unstoppable right now. Like,
and that's Jeffrey's moment.
Yeah. He didn't kill anyone, didn't exact vengeance, like, he just had a moment of, like, I took your car after you struck me with it. Like I'm the victim. He's probably racing to a hospital right now. But that's his win. Like, that's all he wanted.
His win is really, like, taking her only escape and then ruining it. Like, totally making it not a possibility, because he doesn't just take the car, chases her then with it, and then, like, smashes into a concrete block.
Not even usable.
With it,
right?
It pretty much ruins the vehicle entirely, so you can't use it.
I guess I didn't look at it that way, as
she was about to leave in that moment, and Jeffrey.
I didn't even think about it like that, you know, and maybe, like, that says something to me as an audience member of a movie, but I wouldn't have even thought of it of, like, oh yeah, this is, like, this man might not be the one exacting this horrible punishment on you, but he's not gonna, like, he's taking away your method of escaping it right now. Very literally. It's something I hadn't thought of.
There's a shot right there when that happens that she looks up at the sky, and the stars are, like, in almost like a slit,
Yeah.
like formation, and it like is reminding of like this is like the image of the womb. There's also a few other
Yeah.
shots of that earlier in the movie when she's in the forest. They like focus in on a shot of a tree where it like kind of does look like legs and like a pussy, and this might be like, oh, I'm failing the test of like the Rorschach test and I'm seeing the vagina or whatever, but I think it is meant to be there.
It is.
And I
for
think
sure
like
is.
these weird like reminders to her at the same time, because she like gazes up at the stars. She's like, yep, this is what it is to be a woman, unfortunately. Like, this man took away like my power when I had it for a moment. I was in the car, that was my power to escape. He ripped it from me. I look up and I see like what I am and what that means to me now in this world.
Well, even
So
her
I
like
do want to say like something about this movie is that even good movies do this. Where sometimes there are shots in the movie where it's like, that was obviously filler and that like was just kind of like weird. I think this movie, on my second view around, I'm like really impressed that seems like every shot does have meaning to it, that like there wasn't anything wasted. And you could say, oh well, what about the shot of like the landscape like at the sunset or whatever? It's like I still like that. I think that was good, and it's telling of like, you know, the night is coming, like that this is a whole different meaning to a woman now. And I think that was really impressive overall. Like, once again, that's chalked up to editing and cinematography, but really impressive work.
When I pulled up my stream of the movie, I was kind of shocked that it was only, and my stream didn't have the credits. It like ends right at the end with her smile. I think she smiles at the camera.
Yeah.
She smiles at the camera at her friend.
Yeah. There is a, you know, it was 136 or 1 hour and 36 minutes, and that's without the credits. And I was a little like, when I first loaded it up and I saw that, I was like, I expected this to be like a 2-hour movie. Like, even right at the beginning, I'm like, huh. Thought I was gonna have to like dig in a little bit longer. But you know, when I messaged you guys in the during the pub scene, I was like marveling at the fact. I was like, "Holy shit, we're in the finishing stretch right now." Like, we're at the end of the movie.
Watching it the second time through, it was also just as much of a breeze as it was the first time. Like, I think I do like. It is telling. I think I really like this movie. Do I think it's like the best movie I've ever seen? No, but I think it is awesome in its own weird way, and I was happy to see it again. I might see it again. Like, there's all types of weird symbolism going on. Like, I had mentioned the whole garden thing earlier, like taking the forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
She bites it. Basically, like, the start of this nightmare for her. So I'm, like, trying to figure out if it's really just that obvious or there's deeper symbolism to that. But, yeah, I went to the bathroom. Did we talk about,
we did not talk about
the finale here?
So Jeffrey crashes the car. Nature Guy comes out, and Nature Guy gives birth to the boy. Just from a vagina on his back, which I was like, oh, I see what you did there.
Oh, no. He gives birth to.
Oh, from okay.
Vagina's in the normal place.
But it moves like further back as it happens, because that was one thing that stood out to me.
Well, he also
there's that stone. There's a stone in the church that has the Nature Guy face on it, and then on the back is the woman leg spread. And I find that interesting how the vagina moves further and further back with each like progressive birth to like resemble that stone in some way.
I didn't think that was happening. Okay. I'm pretty sure it is just like.
Until
the back scene.
No,
I'm not gonna argue, but like
all I'm gonna say about that is like, you know, you're talking about a man with like very tasteful shadows cast upon his nether regions, and then a very weird like up in your face like just straight up vagina or asshole on this being, this man. You've seen his dick already. It's like, you know, he has a dick, right? And all of a sudden he's giving birth to a boy, and when we say gives birth to a boy, he gives birth to like a 12-year-old, like
it's the boy
at least
from
4.5 foot tall boy, yeah. he's not giving birth to a baby, so he's like giving birth to a full, like a half-grown human, and then that boy gives birth to
the priest,
a full-grown man, and so like I just looked at it
this, but it does start with Jeff coming out of the car, and it's the nature man, the second man she saw, who is the same face. Third person she saw was the boy. The boy gives birth to the priest. The priest gives birth to
Jeffrey.
Cop or the bar guy?
No, the priest gives birth to Jeffrey, and then Jeffrey gives birth finally to her husband.
I thought that was the cop guy. I didn't think it was Jeffrey. And I was like looking at its hair length to be like, is that Jeffrey? I don't think so, but maybe.
Well, it's hard to tell with all the viscera having it slicked back.
Yeah. Well,
so
if it's a progression if it's a progression of man, I don't mean to interrupt. If it is a progression of man, I think it's like from the boyish not understanding, just expecting to be the one in control, that translates to an authoritarian man who is like above even common discussion over things. Once this man makes a decision, that's what all man and woman should respect. And then from that, I thought it was Jeffrey coming out as the final man to be birthed, and I looked at that as the man, like the fail son, the kid who thinks of this image of man that he's supposed to live up to, and he just simply like can't live up to it, you know? And so he's a little cynical about it and narcissistic in a way, and is willing to even poke fun at it. Like that's how I saw it.
Which then finally gives way to her husband, who says like, look at what I did. I split my hand open. I busted my fucking ankle. My organs are all smashed up. Look what I did for you. And then she, like, funny in hindsight, I wasn't laughing in the theater, but she just kind of sits down next to him and says, what do you want from me? And he just goes, I want you to love me. And she just kind of laughs that off and is like, yeah. And end of movie. Like we come back for a second. Well, her friend shows up, but we get the title card and written and directed by Alex Garland when she's like, okay, that makes sense. Not like I'll give that to you, but like, okay, yeah, that's, I guess that is what you want.
I think the end where her literal husband is birthed out at the end of this progression of like power dynamics of masculinity. And it's like the real world example of a man that she is facing. I think it's so. It is so. It's the only moment where you can be on his side, right? It's the only moment where you can kind of be like, yeah, I get it. Like all you want, like, you know, you were willing to fucking, whether you jumped or you were just trying to get back in the building because you loved her so much, like you just now you're here, like you did it all for her.
And I will say the moment where the boy, he like lets out a cry when he starts to give birth to the priest. That's when those two women who were one row up from me and on the other side were like, no, fuck this, like audibly fuck this, and got up and walked out. And I got a little smile out of that unintentionally. I felt bad because I've been there before too, where like the movie probably wasn't exactly what I was hoping it was gonna be, and I got upset. But I
and Tusk
in their pain a
little
bit.
I'm sure Jacob
Rob
can remember
Rob seeing
the moment. I didn't walk out, but the moment Tusk ended, I saw with Jacob.
Rob was like, "Okay, we are out of this fucking theater right now."
I was like, I can't look at a single moment of credits on this movie.
But yeah, that's pretty much the end.
Jake,
happens.
What do you have to say? Like, what is your thought on the end?
Oh yeah, I just, with the whole birthing scene, I was gonna say that there was just like the first time I saw the movie, there was just me and like two other dudes in the theater.
Again,
we were all sitting in the top. Yeah, and we were all sitting in the top row, and when that birthing scene was happening, like the first time you see it, really long. Second time, you know, I was kind of like, I knew it was coming, but that first time, don't know how long it's going to go, and it goes for a long time, and does make you uncomfortable, at least as a man, because I think it is just like that's a man. They can't give birth, that's weird. But like it is there's something else going on there, like in almost like a De Palma way where it's like you like in Carrie it's like you're like, ugh, women have periods, so that's nasty. As a man, like you see that and you're like, he's trying to like beat out who gets uncomfortable with this and who doesn't, and I feel like this is one of those scenes. And as it was happening, I was the uncomfortable guy, but there was the dude next to me, like kind of close to me, and we just like looked at each other, and we were just like, Jesus, like this is really going on a long time. And I just thought that was like a little anecdote.
No, listen, when I was watching it, I on my computer watching it, kind of like leaned back, and in the middle of that scene, Jazz was on the couch playing Xbox, and I had my Beats headphones on. We're totally disconnected. I did look back, and I was like, "Are you seeing this shit right now? Like, are you like I wish she had like caught it in her the corner of her eye and been like, what the fuck is going on? Because that I described it to her because after the movie, after I finished it, she asked me what I watched, and it was like I described to her the story of like, oh, she told her husband she was leaving, and he like killed himself or died because of it, right? And I told her a little bit about like showing up at the manor, and I was kind of like, well, that's where the movie is, like here's the backstory, and like that's where you start with this female character. And when I described, she was like, okay, did you like it? And I was like, the ending is grotesque. Like the ending is, I really like this movie, but the ending is full on like test of strength, like.
Yeah. Making you watch this thing, and I think as a man, like what it is, like is it harder for us because like us watching a birth in general would be hard for us possibly, and then like to add the other layer that a full man is coming out, like that is the obvious, like,
and it's
whoa,
and it's a projection of your like most negative qualities that you can project onto the world, right?
Yeah. It's like it made me feel ways where I was like, I'm grossed out with this. Is it wrong that I'm grossed out with this? And I think for the most part, no. But I think there is like a layer of that. It's just a birth thing, and I am man, and I am uncomfortable with that. It kind of says something about me, maybe in general, but it is a weird scene. I think everyone agrees. Like my second viewing of this, there were women in the theater this time, and they were the ones to say, "What the fuck?" Like I did hear that. So I think it just kind of hits everybody, and
that's nice to hear that even the women were like, "Shit, like this is crazy right now."
That's what happens to us when we're.
I hope there were...
Yeah. Oh, and it wraps up with like earlier in the movie, her friend said, "I'm gonna come there and like we're gonna have a good time because you're having such a bad time, and I'm gonna be there we're gonna stand together and be strong against these fucking
We're gonna
men.
laugh and we're gonna cry and we're gonna share a pair of jeans.
You need levity, and you're not getting it because men won't let you have that. So I'm going to come and we're going to have a good time." And her friend shows up pregnant. I don't know if that means anything.
Yeah, that also is a weird thing at the end.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that, but when she sees her friend, smiles, and it's once again a moment of levity.
What I interpreted that as, and I don't think this is right, but the first thing that my brain went to was, Rob, I think you had mentioned it earlier on in the podcast, what my brain immediately filled in the blanks as, and again, I don't think this is correct, but just a theory. I think that maybe there was a cheating element with the husband, and that's what prompts the divorce, and then it's his child, because her friend, whether it's seeing Jesse Buckley covered in blood or just seeing Jesse Buckley, like either or, like the friend doesn't look excited to see her when she shows up. Like,
What makes
so...
the most sense to me was the thought I had that, like, Jessie Buckley's character was in a relationship with her friends, quote unquote, and, like, you know, it's not like they're having a baby together in that way. It's
Yeah.
and I think yeah, what
I was just gonna say again, not to make it personal, but he has a line that I felt very recently with what does he say? He is like on the couch in one of the flashbacks, and he's like, you know, I think he says something like, "This is who I am. Like I've changed, but like, you know, you signed on. Like this is who the
we made
person
promises.
The promises,
exactly.
the promises
that's
were.
what it is.
It was something like the promises were unconditional.
Yeah,
and then says like not, oh, I love you now, but I reserve the right to change my mind later because I don't know who you're gonna be. Like, and he's kind of like being sarcastic with it, and then that's when they start talking over each other.
Yeah, and maybe that's why I like vibe with this character so much when he is finally birthed at the end, and he's just like, "Here's what it is," you know, like I just need you to love me, okay?
I'm a selfish baby, and I'm asking for love, and even though I don't really deserve it.
It's like and that is such a thing like that hits as a man who, you know.
What I did to myself. Do you love me now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It goes back to like, you know, I think Shakespeare is having a little bit of a renaissance these days, and like people are like, oh, Shakespeare's a thing again. You know, it goes back to that weird Romeo and Juliet thing of like, you know, hey, bro, maybe this chick was better off with you not pursuing her, right? Mm-hmm. Like. Maybe Juliet would have lived a long and fruitful life with, you know, if you hadn't have like made it about her, you know, because fucking Romeo's the aggressor, and you look at, you know, in the modern understanding, it's like, oh, these star-crossed lovers, they're both innocent in this whole thing. It's like, nah, Romeo could have left her alone. Like Romeo didn't have to climb her balcony. Romeo could have just gone and hung out with his buddies that night and like not tried to, you know, force himself on this woman. No, I think like there's definitely something to be said that men throughout the course of time have this archetype of a woman where it's like, well, I did all this for you. Like, don't you get it? Like at the moment I die, when I'm an 80-year-old man and I've put everything I can into this world. This was all because of you, Betty. Like, you know, this is all because of you, Christina. Yeah. Like, I built these pyramids of hatred and disgust because of you. And I guarantee you that if you look back at like the woman's perspective throughout history, even if you just look at like the you know, sex revolution where women were like, we can come, like we're allowed to come during sex and we're allowed to enjoy this. This isn't just about a man like taking you up to make out point and getting his rocks off. I think that throughout human history, a lot of women have just kind of been like, these fucking idiot men, these dipshit babies who like just, you know, they just want to fuck, and they'll do all these ridiculous things just to fuck, just to impress us. Yeah, I hate that about myself.
I think it's like an in general thought. It's like, yeah, like look at this is what men do. They're just like, oh my gosh, they're like, it's all a competition for us. They'll fucking throw themselves off a roof for us or whatever. But also, it's like, I think everybody, and I've heard this from women, it's like, you like when, you know, people like when you fight over them or for them. But it becomes like, when you generalize the thing, it's like, oh, that's all men do. Like, and it is kind of true. It's like they, you know, you're just like, oh, they're just out to prove themselves because of this natural way. It's like, oh, then I get to fuck and like come and like, you know, it's weird. Being a person is weird, and acknowledging the things like that, just like our natural urges, is fucking weird. And like the more intelligent we get and like more progressive we get, like we evolve, it's weird that like these old things are just still like naturally a part of us, and we're like, that is not exactly right to doing these things. Like,
well, you know, there's
cool
the
think this way.
No, I think earlier I wanted to say like you know, we're just a couple of men talking about men right here. Like,
It's so
you know,
weird.
it's I would love to. I think I'm gonna really try to get Jazz to see this movie with me because I would just kind of love to get a female perspective of just like, so did you just think these guys were like fucking Neanderthals, like
Yeah.
doing all this dumb shit? Like, did you think that like one of them was justified? You know, I'd love to figure out where, because I think like for me, and I've been singing his praises the whole show. My man Jeffrey did nothing wrong, and so I would love to get a female perspective, maybe specifically on Jeffrey, where it's just like
the only time, like, ignoring the climax, like, if we're just looking at from the first frame we see him up until when he, like, chases off the bad guy, the only time he does anything that could be kind of considered out of place is when she's in the bar and she orders like a vodka tonic or whatever, and he goes to pay for it, and he's like, "Here, I got it," and she's like, "No, no, no," and then he's like, "No, no, no, I got it." And they have a little back and forth, and then he just goes to the bartender, "No, her money's no good here." Like,
yeah,
even though she said no several times, he's still like, "No, no, no, I'll be I'm gonna be the upstanding person here. I can cover it because your money, as a woman, your money's no good here. I have to be the one to provide."
I'm a man.
Yeah.
I have tons of money, but
Yeah.
you, honey, get yourself like lunch tomorrow or something.
It's the same thing as like when the guy is like, "I'm going to kill myself for you," in a weird way. Like it's like, because it's this guy
different
Jeffrey
flavors
who's
of
putting
toxic
himself out
masculinity.
here. Yeah, so he's like, I'm going to like, well, he's carrying the bags in the beginning. No, no, I got the bags. I got the bags, and he's struggling, and like,
And he
it's
says
this
like,
thing,
"Oh
You
shit."
see what I did this for
Yeah.
you? Like, you see what I did for you? It's the same thing with her husband, like killing himself. It's like, I love you so much, I'll kill myself, and it's your fault. And it's like, it's the same exact energy, but Jeffrey is like doing it in this way where it's not exactly exposed until he gets.
Until he gets
We
run
talked
over.
about hit by a car, and then he's like, "The facade's off. Fuck this." Like, you know,
Yeah.
like so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Super.
How do we?
Tricky.
One thing that I this can probably be what we end on, because I know we trying to keep shorter episodes and we've been going a bit longer
Did
than
not
planned
happen.
here. But
I knew that wasn't gonna happen. I don't care.
where do
This
we?
movie was great.
It was a great. What are we feeling? What I want to know is like, what do we feel like overall, like out of 10 on its own? But then also, how do we feel it stacks up against Alex Garland's other two movies, Ex Machina and Annihilation? Because one, I didn't read the full article, but I remember reading the beginning of an article. And I don't know if this is a case of the movie did poorly and he was kind of like in a negative space, but he had said in an interview that he's considering going back to just writing movies now instead of directing after Men. So I guess like
Four
overall.
forks 2 times. Great chain restaurant. Oh wait, this is a movie. And we're rating it. I liked it. I liked it better than Ex Machina, and I liked Ex Machina better than Annihilation, I guess, if we're going off of those movies.
That's fair.
I have a bad history with this director with Annihilation. And I have to say, like, I think I've sung its praises a lot throughout the history of the show. I love the original Blade Runner. Anything that has like robots fucking humans, it's gonna get me on. I'm a huge fan of Ex Machina. I think Ex Machina got a weird level of just like, oh, this like weird cool movie with like pretty good like effects. Like I don't think it got enough praises for what it was. This movie grew on me in a weird way because I'm like you guys, like Jake has seen it like twice. Jacob, you saw it at least in theaters, right? And you've had time to think about it. I just saw this movie like 8 hours ago, and in the worst way possible. Like I couldn't have seen the. There were times in this movie where like it would just cut away to like a fucking online Indian casino ad where this like random American guy is just throwing foods into a blender, no sound other than cha-ching noises. Like
It's Rory.
It's Rory Kinnear again. Yeah, no, Jeffrey.
it was the crazy. It was like Twin Peaks level of crazy. And halfway through the movie, what was it? It was like Light Lotto or some shit. If you go to like lightlotto.co, you can get some like 200 times gambling deals or some shit. But I saw this movie in the worst possible way, and I still like have really, especially after this discussion with you guys, and just this, I watched this movie at a weird point in my life. Like I really love it. I think at the end of the day,
it was exactly how I felt about I'm thinking of ending things. If so now you see where I was coming from.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
I like weirdly wish this wasn't the movie that like perfectly summed up. Like I'm gonna be an 80-year-old man being like, yeah, this fucking A24 movie like really nailed me to the
down,
cross. Yeah, like. A week before my 27th birthday, this random fucking movie told me who I am, and I had to deal with it. Like, yeah, I really love this movie. I can't wait to see it again.
I also really want to see it again, and I'm kind of hesitant to like give it a number, but like I'm feeling. I'm feeling a really solid 7 out of 10 right now. I feel like it's closer to an 8 than a 6. But like,
you're aligned with the critics. It's got like a 72.
I think so.
Tomatoes.
But again, I really liked it, and again, I feel like I'm leaning more towards that like higher end than being like, it was all right. But I don't know. I want to see it again, and I feel like that maybe that'll firm up to an 8 once I can like really appreciate it, because I've seen it twice now. The first instance was the less than ideal way, Rob, that you mentioned, and then I did get the theater experience. I want to do like what you said. I want to watch it with my girlfriend and then be like, okay, so as a woman, like, how does this, like, give me your opinion on this, please.
I'm in a weird like fucking make or break situation, I think, in my relationship, and I want to see with Jazz just because it's like, all right, should I just leave? Like, just tell me, should I just not try at all? Like, because
I really don't want to climb to the top of this building right now, because you won't get the cool effect of me passing you on my way down.
Exactly.
You'll just see the end result. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That was
no,
and
dark. Like knowing and like dying, knowing that it's like, she's just gonna have to deal with other versions of me. Like that's the other thing of like knowing that it's like, she's not gonna mourn me. This isn't like the early 1900s where you only had like one husband and you like mourned that husband for 50 years if he died. It's like, no, she's gonna meet a bunch of assholes who are gonna treat her exactly like I did, and those assholes aren't gonna kill herself, like, or kill themselves over her. I did. I'm the fucking like that's the other thing. It's like he's a cliff note in her story. Like, despite all this bullshit like she deals with in the very literal sense of like the violence and the anger,
all she wants is to move on, and he won't let her move on.
It's pretty heavily implied that, I think the best thing about a movie with a female star is like, oh, you're strong. Like, you're not, this isn't one of those like damsel in distress situations. It's like, no, your life is your own. Like, you're gonna do your own thing. You're gonna, hopefully live out your days and have plenty of adventures that you're in charge of.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm feeling like, again, like I like solid 7 out of 10, probably closer to an 8 than a 6. In terms
Jake,
of the
where are you at?
Want me to rate it on a scale?
Yeah, give me
No.
Imagine you're sitting at the BuzzFeed offices in New York, and you're just you're thinking to yourself, if I don't come up with a hot take for the week, something that people are gonna really share on Facebook, what's your feel?
Yeah, probably a 7 or an 8, like maybe 7.5, I guess. Movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like when I watched the trailer, I kind of thought it was gonna be this. I was thrown off by some particulars, and no, I liked it a lot. Like I said, it was super captivating both times I watched it, and I think that's kind of the sign of a good movie is like I've dreaded having to do that before, and I wasn't exactly hyped to even see it a second time, but while I was in there, it breezed through, and I knew what was coming, and I still really enjoyed it. So I'd say it's a solid movie for sure. It's very good.
I think in the pantheon of A24 movies, this is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a little bit above you guys and the critics, and I think this was like an 8.5 or a 9 for me. And that's and Jacob, you had, I'm sure, a very similar experience to me watching it the first time. I had it was a fucking struggle like dealing with this movie. But there were times where I was just kind of lost in this film. And it's a very short movie. Yeah. It doesn't ask a lot from you. Like, again, 90 minutes is like, whew, I'm going to breeze through this. I got other plans tonight. Like, I could go out to a restaurant after this movie, It's not a 3-hour slugfest like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where it's like, oh, this is my night. Like, this is... Mm-hmm. I don't even have time to travel to another location to do other stuff tonight kind of movie. But yeah, I'm gonna see it in theaters. I think it's like a 9, definitely.
I really hope that you get like the same kind of weird theater experiences that we got. The only like
oh yeah,
we can end on this if we have no other thoughts. But like the other thing other than those two women leaving and being like fuck this, like at the birthing scene.
So funny.
When the movie was over and the lights came up and we were walking out, there was the other the other couple that were there. It was the guy about my age and a girl maybe like a year or two younger. I was behind them and they were walking out ahead of me, and she was like super not happy with them. She's like being like, why did we watch that? I didn't like that at all. Like they like just the typical like after movie like talk, like what you thought about it. And the guy was very much like, I couldn't really pin him down, but I could tell he liked it and she didn't. And they were kind of like not arguing, but like being like, what do you mean it was great? And her being like, nah, that was dumb. Like what like the whole back and forth. And they kind of like stopped outside the theater for a second, like, but I continued on. I went to the bathroom, and as I was coming out of the bathroom, he was coming in. And we locked eyes for a second, and I don't know what the like in my head I was like, okay, so this is where my horror movie starts, because he's coming in, and I'm going out, and he gives me this like that gif of Jack Nicholson from that Adam Sandler movie where he's like nodding and smiling. he gives me a look like that for some reason, and I was like, and I kept going, and I don't know what that was about or why, but yeah, it made me laugh.
I gotta see it in a Philly theater. Like last night I saw Top Gun 2 and I saw it in King of Prussia, and it was like a pretty mixed crowd and everyone seemed to like the movie, but I really hope in Philly I can get that experience of like 3 or 4 people that I'm very intimate with for the next 90 minutes. Like last night near the end of Top Gun, I don't mean to like draw this episode out, but last night at the end of Top Gun, I was like hollering, I was screaming, I was throwing my fucking fists in the air. I was like so excited for this shit, and I was just another voice in the crowd. But I hope when I see this, I get to see it with like a couple people who are just like totally, not ready for it.
it's cool that it does that. That it gets
Yeah.
that reaction out of people.
I had a professor at Kutztown who like we would get like he would wax poetic about movies sometimes, but one thing that I really vibed with is he's like, the worst thing that can happen to you when you're leaving a movie is for someone to be like, yeah, it was okay, like
Yeah.
even if you have a Rob Tusk reaction, like that means that like you care and you
No, that was
like,
I don't shoot. It was like one of the few times I got a like celebrity to favorite a tweet, but I tweeted at Kevin Smith. And he favorited it. I was like, Tusk disgusted me in the best possible way. Like it just, I couldn't have appreciated it more, and yet I hated it. Like I hated it so much. But I love this movie. I think it's really good. I think we've sucked its dick for like a while.
Tweet the same thing at Alex Garland to just sub out Tusk for men and see if you get a favorite out of him.
Yeah, if I was desperate enough to be like, yo man, what's up? Let's get some of those Twitter bots
or just leave it in. Dude, just tweeted Alex Garland, Tusk disgusted me in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I guess that's been another episode of the Buttery Males podcast. Just three men talking about men. And,
I know, right?
And not once did we make a 2.5 men joke.
So crazy that we just talked for. Well, we almost talked for 2.5 hours about men. But it's crazy we just had this whole conversation. We didn't once have a woman's perspective on it at all. It's just blowing my mind right now.
I'll have my girlfriend watch it sometime in between one of our upcoming records, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna really try to drag Jazz to it.
Jake, you should go up to your that one woman coworker of yours who wanted to be your friend and be like, okay, you can be my friend, but we have to go see this movie together. and see if she still wants to spend time with you after that.
I told some people about it at work, and they had no idea what the movie was. They had never heard of it. So,
well, there you go.
Follow
us on Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram. There's a Twitter. You can rate us on Spotify 5 stars. If you listen, you can tell your friends about us. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Subscribe to the YouTube where we upload the same episodes, but you can see our big dumb faces instead of just listening to our smooth, sexy voices. We also have some YouTube exclusive content, so check that out.
I had a person at work the other day be like, you should be on the radio. I was like, haha, I'm trying.
We're trying.
We're really trying here. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess.
Love you, Mom.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Talk to you later.